Welcome, good evening. Welcome to the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education meeting. We'll call the meeting to order at this time. Pursuant to the Board of Education bylaws, the first meeting in December is an organizational meeting. Therefore, I will preside over this meeting until a chairman has been elected, which is our first order of business after the pledge and invocation. At this time, I'll ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Board Member Lyda Calvert-Hayes. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Students and staff, and all who loved Principal Childress. May we have a brief moment of silence. Amen.
I will now call the annual organization meeting to order. Our first order of business is to elect a chair. We will use the following procedure. I will open the floor to nominations for chair first. After I close the floor for nominations, I will call for a vote on the nominations for chair in the order in which they are received or the nominations are received. I would like to go over the election process. The nominees will be called in the order in which they are made. Each board member must raise their hand to vote in favor of a nominee. If a board member does not raise their hand, this vote is considered, or lack of raising your hand or acknowledgement of a vote is considered to be against the candidate. The nominee that receives a majority of the votes in her favor will be elected. If the first nominee receives a majority, that individual is elected. If the first nominee fails to receive a majority vote, the superintendent, myself, will proceed to the second nominee. Once the chair is elected, the chair will proceed in the same manner with the election of the vice chair. So now we'll open the floor to the board members who wish to nominate a chair.
I would like to nominate Melissa Woodbury.
A second.
We have a nomination of Melissa Woodbury. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no further nominations, I will close the nominations. Well, I will ask all in favor to raise your right hand. We have a unanimous vote. Our chair at this time is Melissa Woodbury. Congratulations.
Thank you. We will move forward this evening with the voting of the vice chair. Is there a motion to elect the vice chair?
Chair Woodbury, I would
Yes.
like to nominate Lyda Calvert-Hayes.
Is there any question or discussion? All in favor? All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. The next order of business for this evening is the agenda review. I think we're fine tonight. Yeah. The next order of business tonight is the agenda review. In reviewing the agenda, is there a motion to approve the agenda as written?
Actually, there's a motion to remove and add a buildings and grounds item. We need to remove the action item. I'm trying to see if it's a discussion as well. Remove the action item that deals with Griffith Elementary.
Is that
pre-K.
N, action item N?
Yes, N.
N as in
Sorry, I thought you
Nancy.
were saying M. Okay, yeah, action item N.
Okay.
And then we need to add to it to consider the approval of a letter to the Forsyth County Commissioners regarding the savings from the 2016 bond.
That is actually on as action item D. Okay.
Oh, that was already added. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So is there a motion to amend the agenda with the removal of action item N?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Any question or discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is special recognitions. First, we will have Greg Gentry with the Winston Open Tennis Tournament donation.
Good evening. I am so happy to be here this evening. It is with pride and joy that I'm able to tell you briefly about our relationship with the Winston-Salem Open. The Winston-Salem Open has supported middle school athletics in the Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools for several years, and during that time frame, we've used their funds for various different things, from starting cross-country and tennis programs and supporting them with equipment. They've provided us with funds, they've provided us with equipment as well as apparel, in which some of the schools are using that apparel as uniforms. So it's a good relationship. This evening, I am blessed and happy to present to you Amy Newsom. Amy is the Chief Operating Officer of the Winston-Salem Open, and she would like to make a presentation to you. Amy?
Thank you, Greg. Good evening. My name's Amy Knudsen, and I am happy to be here this evening representing the Winston-Salem Open Tennis Tournament. We just completed in 2019 our ninth year of the tournament, and as we go into our 10th year, we are pleased to make another donation to our charity of choice, which is the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School Middle School Athletic Programs. And we hope that these funds can go to further develop and grow our mission, which is to develop and grow and promote tennis as a sport through our events and through the children and the school system in our community. So we hope that these will be put to great use, and we appreciate and are honored to continue to have your support as we continue to grow our event in this community. So thank you, and thank you, Greg, for all the support.
Thank you. Shake with me. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Okay. Thank you. So you will also shake the hand of the other board. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you'll shake the hand of the rest of the board members. You did, okay. Can I keep you on stuff, because I'll get it wrong. Okay, thank you. The next recognition that we will have is from Jenny Tate for the national winners of the FCCLA 2019 Fall Leadership Conference.
Thank you, Chairwoman Woodbury, board members, Superintendent Hairston. I'd like to also thank Mr. and Mrs. Rhymes for making sure that Reagan could be here with us. Our other student had an athletic responsibility to attend today. So I would like to tell you what FCCLA stands for. It's Family and Career and Community Leaders of America. And Reagan won first place out of a field of about 25 contestants from across the southeast region of the United States for her impromptu speech. Most of us don't like to speak in public as it is, and we, for a young person to get up and speak in front of a crowd and win first place is something to be proud of. And we have a certificate for you, Reagan, and I'll bring it with you. We'll come get it.
Thank you. Congratulations. Next, we will have the holiday card selections.
Good evening, members of the board, Chairman Woodbury, Dr. Hairston, and honored guests. We will recognize the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools 2019 holiday card selections, starting with Reagan Holton, 12th grader from Reagan High School. Her art teacher is Jennifer Willard, if you'll please stand. Her principal, Brad Royal, selected by Dr. Hairston, our superintendent. And if Reagan has any family here, if you'll stand, please. Thank you. Next is Monica Pelez Almazan, an 8th grader from Philo Hill Magnet Academy. Linda Rubin is her art teacher. Benika Thompson is her principal. And if they will please stand along with Monica's family. Next is Valentina Kova Becerra, an 8th grader from Clemens Middle School. Her art teacher is Stacy Stevens. Her principal is Sandra Hunter. And if they will please stand, and her family. And last but definitely not least, Chase Milner, 4th grader from Kimmel Farm Elementary School. His art teacher is Joanna Portis Stone. His principal is Selena Tribby. And if his family will please stand. Next is Ava Fleming, a 5th grader from Caleb's Creek Elementary School. Her art teacher is Elizabeth Dara. Her principal is Rita McFadder, and she was selected by our chairman, Malashay Woodbury. Next is Todd Ryan, a 12th grader from Carver High School. His art teacher is Deborah Cummings. His principal is Carol Montague Davis, selected by Barbara Burke. And unfortunately, Todd could not make it this evening. Yes, congratulations. Next is Adia Carter, 12th grader from Atkins High School. Her art teacher is Janet Blakely. Her principal is Joe Childers, and hers was selected by Andrea Bramer. If her family would please stand as well. Thank you. Next is Bridget Ramirez, an 8th grader from Philo Hill Magnet Academy. Elizabeth Hronick is her art teacher, and Benika Thompson is her principal. She was selected by Lyda Calvert Hayes, and unfortunately, Bridget could not be here this evening. But congratulations to Bridget. Next, Caroline Hogan, 8th grader from Clemens Middle School. Catherine Howard is her art teacher, and Sandra Hunter is her principal. Her card was selected by Leah Crowley. If her family would please stand, and congratulations. Next is Keely Mata, 3rd grader from Con Oak Elementary School. Noelle Robinson is her art teacher, and Sheila Burnett is her principal. She was selected by Deanna Kaplan, but unfortunately could not be here this evening. So congratulations to Keely. Allison Cano Garcia, a 4th grader from Sedge Garden Elementary School. William Nagel is her art teacher, and Donald Wyatt is her principal. She was selected by Dana Cottle Jones, and unfortunately cannot be here. So congratulations to Allison. Next, Irving Arianes, 11th grader from Kennedy High School. His art teacher is Kelly Katowski. His principal is Keisha Gabriel, and he was selected by Elizabeth Motzinger. If his family will please stand. Congratulations. Next is Brooklyn Brown, 5th grader from Clemens Elementary School. Her art teacher is Fran Page. Her principal is Wendy Brewington, and she was selected by Marilyn Parker. If her family would please stand. Congratulations. And that wraps up this year's holiday card selections, and congratulations to each one. Thank you.
Our next order of business is public comments on the agenda item. So make sure at this time, when you come up, you will speak only to the agenda items for tonight. You will have 3 minutes to have discussion with the board. Direct your comments to me as the chair, and know that while we are not able to respond, I may direct you to a staff member that can answer a question when appropriate. We do ask, as always, that you be respectful, kind, and know we cannot talk about sensitive and private student or personnel information in this public setting. While we hope it doesn't, should the comments become personal, attacks, contentious, or otherwise disruptive, I will reserve the right to end the comment period. And I will say, unfortunately, tonight, we will not be able to extend comments for an extra 2 minutes. The first person we have tonight is Mr. Al Jabar, who will talk to us regarding one of the policy issues on the agenda.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury,
Good evening.
Co-Chair Calvert Hayes, and the remainder of the school board, and good evening, Dr. Hairston. You know, I was in a committee meeting some time ago, and there was some discussion about public speaking at the end of the meeting. And I remember some of the school board members here spoke against that. I'm here today as a taxpayer Now, when you chose this job, you chose the responsibility that goes with this job. Now, personal attacks. I don't know how many, I come to all these school board meetings, I can't remember 5, 4, 3 attacks on anybody sitting up here. But yet, you have developed a policy that says we can't speak. But once a month, it appears that this board is attempting to censor the community. We elected you to represent the community and these kids in the school system. But yet, you want to come up with these different, and I'm not even sure if there was a policy in place before y'all decided that you were going to put one in place. But I think it's so unfair that we don't get to come to the school board meeting and speak. And on top of that, we can't even speak about an agenda item at the public comment section. What are y'all doing? Is this a dictatorship? I think it's unfair. And I'm here to let you know it's unfair. And I'm letting you know that as a taxpayer and a voter, we have a right to determine who sits up here. So if y'all are putting this on as a voting agenda item this evening, it is my hope that this is voted down, because if it's not, there will be repercussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Val Young.
Hello, Board and Dr. Hairston.
Good evening.
I'm Val Young. I'm the president of the Forsyth County Association of Educators. And today, I was really excited about seeing the policy on equity, because I think a lot of times people think that equity and equality are the same thing, and they're not. So I was interested in seeing the definition that you put in here, and it made me excited because now I think it's a clear picture of what it should look like. What should equality look like for all our children? To that end, LCAE, NCAE, and NEA has worked towards doing a lot of work towards equity. We have something called the School Opportunity Checklist. It's just a checklist that you can look at as a layperson, a parent, a student, or all the stakeholders in your school and say, oh, my school is doing really great at this area, not so great at this, but we can work on it. And it is anonymous. It's an online form that you can do at My School, My Voice, NEA.org, or you can do a paper form like I have here. I brought some for you to look at. And when schools are ready and they want to dive a little deeper into what they're doing and the work that they're doing in their school towards equity, then they can do an opportunity audit, which is a little bit deeper and a little harder work for you, because you're having to really come up with things that you can do that are better for all of your students. So I'm excited that we're going to get to the point that we're going to look at all children and all the things that they deserve, and we're going to give them those things at this district. And I hope that I can play a part in that. So I brought some literature for you, some resources, and the one thing that I like more than anything else, it's free.
Thank you. Next, we will have Mr. Alfred Harvey.
Good evening, Chairwoman Woodbury.
Good evening.
Co-Chair Calvert Hayes, Dr. Hairston, and this distinguished board. Talking about policy, I hope and pray that this board realizes that they represent the citizens of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County, not Orange County. So if the board wants to adopt something that they're doing in Chapel Hill, then maybe some of those folk on the board, maybe you may need to move to Chapel Hill. Because in Winston-Salem and Forsyth County, as long as I've been coming to board meetings, and it goes all the way back to Marvin Ward, when we were students at Carver High School protesting the closing of Carver High School. That was in 1900 and, I'm not gonna tell you when, in the 60s. I want to tell you how old I am, just celebrated birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday,
But-
belated.
Well, thank you. But I just think that, I'm glad to see that it's a first read. I hope you talk about it and you be reasonable about it. Because when you start saying that you're gonna have a session where somebody can only speak the fourth week, the last week of the month, I'm sad to say, like Mr. Jabar said, you just want to silence the public and do whatever you want to do. That's not right. That is not right. And to come up with an idea like that is just wrong. Ms. Parker, you've been on this board a long time. I never heard Donnie Lambert say anything about silencing the people. And he had some people that he needed to silence that came before the board. So if this board wants to shy away from its responsibilities to this community, then you'll have a first read and then you'll go right ahead and support this. But I know some people don't want to do that. Because look at what you'll be saying. Communication is not a 21st century skill in Forsyth County. And it is. You just recognize all these young people tonight. Public speaking. Now you don't want to hear the public speak. Something's wrong with that. That's almost ridiculous. For you to even have this on here talking about a first read. I thought we had cleared this hurdle a long time ago in committee. It's just wrong. Chair Woodbury, lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Carolyn Highsmith.
Good evening, I'm Carolyn Highsmith, and
evening.
on behalf of the Coalition for Equity in Public Education, and as a member of the school board's Climate, Culture, and Equity Committee, I'm here to voice some concerns regarding the process and communication regarding the proposed draft 1100 equity policy. Since we had our last December 2nd Climate, Culture, and Equity Committee, there's been a lot of confusion, miscommunication, and misdirection to the committee members about the schedule of how this policy was going to be finalized through the school board. We were told that that we had till Friday of the 6th to give our preliminary committee responses to the staff, and then it would go to a public comment for 30 days. Then we find that it's on tonight's agenda, and we've been conducting a 7-day public comment period already. So all this confusion, and then we were told that that this policy would have the 30-day comment, and that this was going to be a preliminary draft equity policy that is going to be considered tonight as a first reading. I urge you to make sure that this is a preliminary first reading of this draft, because as a CCE member, we believe the draft is incomplete and still needs some major revisions. The other thing that we want the Coalition for Equity wants to assert is that we want as much public communication given to the parents and the staff of the school system as far as this equity policy, meaning send out an email to all of the staff telling them about the public comment period, make sure that paper copies go out and emails go out to all the parents so they know about the equity policy. To understand that there are gaps, this is our coalition's revisions that we sent in today. And some of the gaps that we found was there was no mention of climate and culture in the equity policy. which we have added in and defined. There was one of the pillars, they list 6 pillars. One of the pillars is staff. That was left off as being defined, and we have defined the staff development and work environment. We also think that there needs to be a pillar called parents and community relations and engagement. And then finally, we thought that the Office of Equity and Access and Acceleration was not defined to the point of accountability and outcomes. We also wanted that to be defined as access and acceleration. So thank you for our input on this, and I hope you look forward to reading what the Coalition for Equity has submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sally Hirsch.
Good evening, Chair
Good
Woodbury,
evening.
Board, and Superintendent Hairston. Having been involved as an audience member and participated in the discussions and work of the school board's special subcommittee, Climate, Culture, and Equity, or CCE, and thank you for that opportunity, by the way. I really appreciated. That's been a year's worth of work, and I appreciated being involved. I would like to add the following suggested additions to 4 of the 5 equity pillars as defined by the draft equity policy. And I didn't know if you were going to allow a 30-day public input, and so I just thought I would get up here and say a few things publicly so that the public has something of what I've been involved in to understand. Pillar 1, school policy and organization and administration, where it states promote fairness and inclusion. I would add and nurture respect and understanding. This addition will help promote the high-quality education ESSA seeks to provide access to for all students. Pillar 2, school learning environments, where it states experiences that are representative of the school's community, state experiences that are representative of the diversity within the school's community in terms of race, ethnicity, language, socioeconomic, and disability. And I would also include culture, sex, gender, and other defining characteristics that contribute to the makeup of the school's population and or are reflected in educational materials. And then under Pillar 3, I would actually title that Academic Assessment, Placement, and Tracking instead of Academic Placement, Tracking, and Assessment. And where it states programs for special education, career and technical, gifted and advanced placement, I would state and other programs which address the needs of all students to succeed in learning, such as literacy and communication, which we talked about tonight, and communication including reading, writing, translational science and math, and creative expression, and then programs in social and emotional learning and physical development, all crucial to the academic success of all students. Finally, Pillar 4, professional learning, where it states to increase the effectiveness of teachers, school leaders, and all K-12 staff, and and education advocates and volunteers in creating culturally responsive and equitable learning environments. So you include the people from the communities working in the schools. And I would add also to that environments both within and outside of the class of the schoolroom. I respectfully ask that the public comment period for the equity policy be 30 days so that the public has ample time to become aware of, understand the details, and comment on a policy that will have far-reaching effects on the entire district and wider community. And thank you. As my cat reminded me today when I gave her some lemongrass I have growing in the house for winter, she reminded me everything tastes better when you chew on it for a while. So I hope the public will have that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hirsch. Next, we have Katie Sonnen Lee.
Good evening, everyone. My
Good
name
evening.
is Katie Sonnen Lee. I wanted to start by congratulating you, Chair Woodbury, and Vice Chair Calvert-Hayes on your election and re-election. That's very exciting for the school system to have such strong leaders in place. And also to say thank you for continuing to have a simultaneous translation for families that need it when they come to the school board to engage. I think that's really helpful and really important, so I'm just really glad to see that continuing on. And I know that was a change that came in place after you all got elected, so thank you, and after Dr. Hairston came on, so thank you. As for the equity policy, I do hope that it will be open for public comment and that there will be a good faith effort made by the school system to really get it in front of families, because sometimes stuff can get posted on the website, and I'm fairly involved, and I'm like, wait, what happened? Where was it? It's hard to find things. Parents are busy, so really make a good effort to communicate with the public about how to comment on that, and so they can review it. And I also wanted to thank you for taking input from the Culture, Climate, and Equity Committee and other advocates in the community as you were crafting this policy. I think that's really important to get as much input as you can, because this really is a policy for the community and for the students. I know you're looking at changing the structure of the way the board meetings work and the committee meetings work. I want to make sure that we continue to have open time for the public to make agenda comments 2 times a month like we do now, so that it's not just once a month, but that it will continue to for us to have feedback with you all, relationships with you all, and for folks to give their input to our elected officials. I also am hoping that right now, I know we broadcast twice a month the meetings, that we could start broadcasting the committee meetings and the work session, I believe you're calling it. I think that'd be really helpful for folks, because a lot of things happen in the committee that we don't really get to see unless you're sitting in the committee room. And I know as a working parent, it's really hard for me to get to meetings. My husband got home like literally 4 minutes before I walked out the door today. It's just really hard. So if we could watch from home, sometimes that would be really helpful. And also so that folks who can't make it or want to look back at something can do that and have it on video would be really great. And then also I wanted to ask about the Christmas cards, like what happens with those? Does the public buy those as a fundraiser? Like what happens outside of recognizing really great art? So I think that might be something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Josh Ziesel.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury, Vice Chair Calvert Hayes, board members, Dr. Hairston. Congratulations on your reelection. Chair Woodbury, congratulations, Vice Chair Calvert Hayes, and thank you for your year of service.
Thank you.
I want to speak tonight. Well, actually, first of all, I feel like I haven't seen you all forever. I think this is my first meeting in a couple of months, and so it actually feels kind of nice to see you all again with my chosen family here on Tuesday nights. I hope you all are having a wonderful holiday season, and that you all have exciting plans to look forward to for the rest of the month. I'm speaking tonight just about a couple of things about Policy 9000 that I just in reading it, I'm looking forward to hearing the discussion about Policy 9000, but there are just a couple of things in my reading that I wanted to just mention and point out. My first is that it wasn't 100% clear from reading it whether the public was going to continue to be invited to watch the working group, I think you're calling it. I'm assuming because of open meeting laws that that's the case, but it just wasn't 100%, it wasn't clear based on what was written that was the case, so I just wanted to make sure that that was happening. And then if that's happening, there wasn't anything about being able to make comments, and you all can make a decision about open comments, that's fine. But at the very least, I would hope that we could at least make some comments on agenda items for those meetings, just to be able to, again, just be in dialogue. So if that could be a possibility for the work groups, that would be much appreciated. And then the only other thing that I wanted to ask is it would be really awesome if you would consider having the working group happen at the same time that board meetings are right now. So getting here, I think right now it says it's going to start at 5 o'clock. I get off work at 5 o'clock, so I would miss the first part, and I definitely want to continue to be as involved as I can. And so if at all possible to start it, even 5:30 would be helpful, but 6:30 would be great to be able to get some dinner and then come to those working group meetings. I know you all are busy, and I'm looking forward to hearing the discussion about why you chose the times that you chose, but a bit later would be helpful if possible. So thank you so much for all the work that you do, and I'll be back up later, so talk to you then.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is discussion items. The first discussion item is the equity policy by Dr. Hairston.
Thank you, Chair Woodbury and members of the board. The Culture, Climate, and Equity Subcommittee to the Winston-Salem Forsyth School Board was established in December 2018 to address growing concerns related to academic and discipline disparities. The committee set out to accomplish 2 major goals: to establish an Office of Equity and create an equity policy by December 2019. Dr. Karen Roseboro led a lot of the work involved in the committee until the equity office was established, or the equity officer was hired in September. And so the committee has met throughout the year. They've completed their research. They have dialogued about the concept of equity, the origin of equity in the term, and how it best fits into our work as educators. And following these meetings, in early October, we launched an equity audit. A lot of data was compiled and used to further refine the policy regarding equity. So at this point, the last meeting that occurred was in December, and our committee had good conversation around the proposed policy. We posted the policy and asked for feedback. We had several opportunities for feedback. Several people gave us feedback. Our goal was to take some of those tweaks and insert them in the policy. Unfortunately, we had people to rewrite the policy. We had people who sent pages of adjustments to what we posted. So our feeling was, at that time, we could not take that information and then again change the draft that we posted. So tonight we present to you a draft of the policy. We will use the information we received last week after our meeting, after our committee meeting, and we would like to seek permission to post this for 30 days. At that time, following the 30-day window of posting the draft policy, we would go back to the Culture, Climate, and Equity Subcommittee, which is out of the ordinary. It's not our ordinary practice, but we feel we need to bring the group back together to have further dialogue about the feedback that we received from the public during the 30-day window. Following that meeting, we'll exit that meeting with a policy, and I don't think we'll ever reach consensus on everything, but we'll come close to some agreements on some things. We will take that policy to the policy committee, which is in accordance with our policy regarding development of policy. The policy will then leave the policy committee and be presented to you all as a final policy on equity. And so this evening, I'm seeking approval to post the draft for 30 days, and we will again follow the process of comments, going back to the committee, the subcommittee, going through the policy committee, and bringing it back to you once that work is complete. And hopefully that will be by the end of January, but if there's a delay, certainly by the 1st of February.
Thank you, Dr. Hairston. I would just like to thank the work of our board members, especially Deanna Kaplan, who served as the chair for the equity policy, and I would like to thank Dr. Roseboro and, of course, our new equity director, Effie McMillan. I would just like this community to know that in just leaving a state meeting, James Ford, who is now the key person in the state that sort of guides and advises and consults on equity work, was very clear to school board members across the state that this work is hard, fluid work. And I just appreciate the commitment of the committee, and of course, I see the hard work that Carolyn Highsmith and some of the other, Ms. Hirsch is here, and some of the others that serve on the committee. It is very hard and long work to get to this point. We've been working on this as a community for an entire year, and I feel very privileged to be a part of this process. I think that ideally, Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools will become a model for even some of the other districts that do not yet have policies that direct equitable work. So I would just like to, again, thank all of us who have been a part of this work, especially the long hours that our community members have put in to get us this far. Any other discussion? All right. The next discussion item is changes to Policy 9000 by Dion Jenkins.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chair Woodbury, Vice Chair Calvert-Hayes, and members of the board, and Dr. Hairston. The proposed revisions to Policy 9000 are really a continuation of the discussion that was started at your retreat about a month or 2 months ago, time flies, where there was some discussion about changing the structure of the meetings. And if you review the actual proposed revisions that were sent to you, you see that that's the primary change to this policy. There are a couple of other changes that I proposed to just kind of clarify some language and to make the language kind of congruent with our current meeting practice. But for purposes of the public, I want to talk about the main change to the policy. And that is the consolidation of our committee meetings from every Tuesday or every other Tuesday into one work session. And so what's being proposed is that at the work session, which will take the place of the first regular board meeting, which occurs on the second Tuesday of the month, you all will hear from all of the committees at that time, with the exception of the grievance committee. So you'll hear agenda items from the Finance Committee, from the Buildings and Grounds Committee, Curriculum Committee, and Policy Committee. I also have included some language to allow flexibility on the part of the board or the superintendent to add additional agenda items to that work session agenda if there are pressing matters. To address some of the comments that were raised during the public comment period, the reason that there's language in there that says that the only public comment period is in the second meeting of the month is because we have not traditionally had public comments during our committee meetings. And so because we're collapsing our committee meeting structure into that first meeting, that's the reason that that language was included. However, this is just a draft and it's going out for first reading, and so you certainly have the opportunity to change that. But I did want to at least address that that's why the public comment period is going from twice a month to once a month. It's because there was not previously a public comment period afforded for committee meetings. I would also like to say that the going to once a month for public comments does meet the statutory requirement. The statute requires that there's at least one public comment period at a regular board meeting per month. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. But according to the revised structure, there would be a work session that would be held on the second Tuesday of every month, and then the fourth Tuesday of the month would be your regular board meeting that would continue in the same manner that it currently is. At the work sessions, they would begin at 5 p.m. This is actually a change to move the start time back from the 4 p.m. start time for our committee meetings, because members of the board are working parents, members of the community are working parents, and so it actually moves the committee meeting times back later than they are now, which is 4 p.m. But the work session would begin at 5, and then the committee meetings would go one after another sequentially. And the general order of business proposed for the work session would be a call to order, a pledge of allegiance to the flag and invocation, the work session and whatever agenda items are on the agenda, and then adjournment. So that is the main change to this meeting. There are a few other changes reflected in the draft that you received, but again, those are to kind of make the policy more congruent with our current practices. There is language in the policy that says that the public comments would only be at the regular board meeting of the month. And then there's some changes in the policy with regards to the start time of the meetings. But with that being said, that's the summary of the changes to the policy. Are there any questions?
May I add?
Yes.
And I'd like to add that our goal here is to improve communication. Board members and community members are asked to attend meetings all throughout the month, committee meetings. And oftentimes, committee meetings occur directly before the board meeting, which doesn't give enough time for staff to prepare, to place things on the agenda item. And oftentimes, with 4 and 5 meetings throughout the month, plus additional 2 meetings, we're all obligated to meet. But the goal is to have everyone there and have improved communication, continue the committee process, but also to allow our community to know that there's a singular day that they can get to all of the committee meetings, participate, be a part of the process, and not really miss anything. Also, moving it to 5 o'clock ensures that people do have enough time to get from work, and although the committee meetings may last 2 or 3 hours, it's still our commitment to better communicate around our committees that oftentimes are missing key people because there are so many of them. And so we want to improve communication. We want to ensure everybody's involved, and at the same time have a public opportunity to share information, receive comment, and certainly don't, we certainly value comments. That's not something that we really do value comments. I mean, I can't say all of them are fun to listen to, but you do learn some things. And so that is not the goal at all. It is to actually improve communication and to ensure we have minutes from our meetings that can be published, and we can keep track of things that are going on.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Hairston, is our plan to televise? I think that was one of the questions that was brought up. So will we televise the committee meetings or have just very detailed minutes? How will we communicate that to those who will miss?
So the committee meetings will continue. At this time, we don't have that. We're trying to work our best to set up the room to have microphones, so people in the back of the room, it'll be in the same general area, but oftentimes our members complain that they can't hear, so we're equipping with good microphones and good opportunities for people to see the agenda, and that's something we certainly can visit. There's costs associated with that, and certainly something we can visit during our budget season and certainly look at. It is still open to the public. I think the public will be able to, number one, participate because they'll have more information. They'll be able to hear the discussion. Everybody's there. And be in a larger room as well. And the minutes will not be read as you all are reading them now. That's another challenge. We bring those directly from committee to board meeting. The minutes will be typed, published for the public before the board meeting so they can review what's happening.
Thank you.
I have two things. One, for Mr. Cecil, I have been championing the later time. And the whole board can attest, they get emails from me every single week saying, nope, got to be at 5, it's got to be 5. So we're pushing for that. And second, I'm concerned that if we have it once a month, we might have a long meeting, a really long meeting with the amount of material we covered in meetings in this past year.
I will say the committee period of time will be long, but when we miss people, we spend so much time catching people up, and that creates really long meetings because we catch people up, and that's a challenge for us. So this gives us an opportunity to be here on the singular day and capture everything, and then we have one person responsible for the minutes. Now we have 9, and keep things in a succinct fashion. These are legal documents, and so it gives us an opportunity to capture what's happening.
Yes.
My understanding was also by having the committee meetings sequentially, we can often approach topics out of their silos, and so that we're looking at curriculum plus the cost of curriculum plus where in the buildings do they take place. And I think it actually, rather than doing things in silos, really gives us an opportunity to think more holistically about the decisions we're making. My real hope, having been part of a board that did work sessions, was that the conversation amongst board members got really rich and engaged because we had more time to really go into depth with something. This way of doing business is certainly public, but it tends not to really lead to great conversation for the most part. The public is always welcome to contact us, whether it's personal emails or to a group email to the Board of Education, to call somebody, to contact them. So I really don't think it's saying that is the only way you have of being in contact is through public comments. So I'm really looking forward to this change. I think briefing kinds of meetings are really good. I think it's wonderful that all board members will be going to all of the committee meetings. I think that will make the board as a whole much more informed and engaged with the entire work of the board. So I really thank Dr. Hairston for some of the leadership you've given us, because I think this is going to be a really good change for us.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, thank you. From the words of the superintendent, the only folk that like change are babies. I thought when she said that, it almost went over my head, and I said, oh, yeah. But why that is so key is because I think this school board is about reforming education in Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools so that all children, not some, but all children can have access to a great education. And I will say that one of the guiding lights of this board that has helped us to rethink how we will be doing business is a book called, and I would recommend as a community, you also take a look at a book. It's called What School Boards Can Do. And it is Reform Governance for Urban Schools. And it is the gold standard across our nation on how school boards operate in the 21st century. It was actually recommended to me by Minnie Fort Brown, who was the former chair of Durham and who just was recently the president of the North Carolina School Board Association. And so all of us have this book, and as a board, we're really trying to work with our superintendent to bring change that's collaborative with the community, but also change that most importantly will move all of our children forward. So we appreciate your patience as we transform ourselves for children. Yes.
Good evening. I just wanted to say, I think that we need to be mindful of the comments that we've heard from our voters, from our constituents regarding limiting their opportunities to speak. We may need to survey our community because we have heard from at least 2 people here tonight, and we need to think about change is good, but why are we making this change? Are we making this change because it's best for the school board members or because it's best for the community? I think it's important for us to stay connected to our community to make sure that we are being responsible board members at all times. I think that I love the suggestion that was made to video the committee meetings. If we video the committee meetings, we are ensuring that all board members who are not able to attend, and even if we do move to having our committee meetings all on one day from 5 till 7, 5 till 8, if we move to have them on one day, we will still have board members who will not be able to attend. We will not have 100% attendance. But if we're able to video those meetings, anyone, any community member, any board member will have access to those meetings and be able to view them at their own convenience. So I think that we need to think about how we are, like Dr. Hairston said, trying to improve communication and not decrease communication. I think we need to keep our ear open at all times to our community members and make sure that they know that they have a voice, and it's because of them that we are in the seats that we're in now. So thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Marilyn.
The real meat of what we vote on at a voting meeting occurs in a committee meeting. So that's where questions and information is disseminated. I used to get really frustrated when I was out there where you guys are sitting because the board would ramble through something and throw hands up, and you're like, wait a minute, what'd they just do? Committee meetings allow people to see where the thought process came from the very beginning and see where the board members ask questions, how the answers are given, and so you understand a little bit about what comes out that we as board members vote on. I think committee meetings are open, but very rarely do you have a lot of the public come to the committee meetings. To me, they're the more informative thing rather than coming to the board meeting. So I think that this new structure may be a good thing because lots of folks are here 2 Tuesdays a month anyway. So people would come to the committee meetings, see what went on in the discussion, see where people's thought processes were, and ask questions of us after those meetings and give us your feedback after those meetings. and then you may understand a little bit better where things come. So I kind of like this format. I think it'll keep all of the board members more informed, as well as give an opportunity for the public to come and hear the thought processes behind what we're going to vote on. So I think it's worth a try. I do like the idea of videoing, because if people cannot see the meetings, or if I'm homesick, then I get to see them as well. So I do like that idea, but I do think that the meat of what we do on this board occurs on committees, and I like for folks to be able to see that and have that opportunity.
I think the time change that is part of this is also so incredibly critical, because for me, the big oomph was, why are we having a committee meeting while staff is still teaching, while students are still in school, and we were having meetings? And that's not together, and that's not the community as a whole, because one of our big chances is the parents, is the teachers, is the students. So it's really important to have a later time.
I too agree. I think this is a good idea to try. One thing, when I'm sitting up here, a lot of times our audience will come up and they'll say something, and it's something I want to jump up and shake their hand and say, hey, I agree with you 100%, but I can't. I got to sit up here and I'll smile or do a little wave or something like that. But I like the committee meeting when we can be together. Communication is the most important tool that we have. And I feel like a lot of times sitting up here, we don't have the communication with the audience, and that's you. And you are the ones that put us up here. So you are the ones that deserve to be able to come and talk about anything that you feel like will help our kids, our students, and also our teachers. So I like the open communication, and I hope that you'll all come. I hope that it'll work well for all. Let's communicate, and let's get this ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will ask, is it possible to survey our community before we move forward with the vote to see if this is what they would like? Because we're here because of them. They should have a voice.
Yeah, what I would say is that the matter is on the action items for a first reading, and so what we're asking is that it will go out for public comment. So the public will have an opportunity to share, and I invite the public to email me comments about any particular area of the policy, and I'll share that with the board at the end of the public comment period when we revisit this at the next policy committee meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next discussion item is the resolution on fines and forfeitures with Deion Jenkins.
And I'll be really brief about this because I believe that each of you received an email from the School Boards Association, and coincidentally, we have Leanne Winter here from the School Boards Association, who's a part of the legislative agenda on behalf of the organization. But I believe the School Boards Association is asking school boards to sign on to this resolution. The resolution would be a collective effort to ask the General Assembly, when it convenes again in 2020, to develop a plan for the repayment of almost $730 million in fines and forfeitures that are due to the school systems that have been diverted to other avenues over the last 20 some years or so. And so there, I believe, as a part of the materials sent with the proposed resolution, there was also a technology brief that provided some of the history. I wanted to make it clear that the fines and forfeitures were supposed to be dedicated pursuant to the court to technology. And based on the information we've received from the School Board Association, approximately $25 million of that has been set aside for Winston-Salem. So I don't know ultimately how that will work out if the General Assembly decides to develop a plan for how they will disperse these funds on a pro rata basis, but at least based on the information we have, about $25 million or so of that $730 million had been allotted for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. So that will appear on an action item later tonight.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
It seems like this has been going on since I've been a board member forever, before my hair was totally gray. So, I mean, I am livid that this is still an issue. And the fact that I remember as a board years ago that we counted on that money for technology. We didn't put it in a budget. We thought it was coming because we were promised it. And so I just still can't believe that this is still an issue. And I know Leanne is really, she's been there through it all as well. And it's just, it's a travesty. That's just all I'm going to say. It's
Thank you.
Thank you. Is the person from the North Carolina School Board Association wanting to say something in regards to the fines and forfeitures? Yes.
Good evening. I'm
Good
Leanne
evening.
Winter. I'm the Director of Governmental Relations for the North Carolina School Boards Association. I'm actually here for your next agenda item,
Okay.
but I'm happy to comment on this. The original lawsuit was filed in 1998. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court, went back down to the Superior Court, where we finally figured out the number, and the final judgment came out in 2008. We were able to get $18 million at that point that the university had been holding in escrow. Then 10 years passed, and judgments expire at that point, so we renewed the judgment last year. And so now we are making a really strong push to see if we can get this resolved. And we think with them coming back in January, that might be a key opportune time to get them to at least put a plan in place so that when they do the budget, hopefully, in the short session, that then we could get the first part of that money flowing to the school districts across the state. So we would appreciate any support from your board.
Thank you. The next discussion item is an update on the strategic planning by Dr. Lionel Cato.
Good evening, Chair Woodbury, Vice Chair Calvert Hayes, ladies of the board, Superintendent Hairston, and community stakeholders. I wanted to give you all an update this evening on our strategic planning process. And just to kind of give you a very quick summary, as you know, the executive cabinet and district leadership worked on a draft mission and vision several weeks ago, brought it to the board, you guys approved it. Since then, we've had 3 community stakeholder SWOT analysis meetings, and we've had 3 for staff. Total about 81 people participated in those. We've had an online SWOT analysis, examining the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it was online. There were 1,128 staff members that participated in that, and 499 community members. And yesterday, we took all of that information. We worked together with a group of 25 very diverse individuals, including school board members, 1 student, some parents, and district office staff, and we drafted goals. And so we wanted to share those goals with you tonight. And we pared down to 5 main goal areas, and they are here. I'll read those. The Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools students will have equal access to effective instruction to raise achievement, close achievement gaps, and enable all students to take ownership of their learning. Goal area 2, WSFCS will eliminate barriers so that factors of achievement predictability do not impact students' equitable access to learning opportunities. Goal area 3, WSFCS will build and strengthen partnerships and communication with families, local businesses, educational organizations, community agencies, and advocacy groups in order to engage families and community stakeholders in the entire educational process for all students. Goal area 4, WSFCS will recruit and retain a highly effective and diverse workforce that supports district goals to ensure excellence for all. And goal area 5, WSFCS will foster an inclusive climate that values the safety and well-being of all students, faculty, and staff, and foster an environment that creates a sense of belonging. And so from here, you've already met Ms. Winter. Ms. Winter is also our facilitator for this work, and I'll have her come forward and kind of talk about next steps and we can both hopefully answer any questions you may have about the goal areas, the draft goal areas.
So good evening again. I'm Leanne Winter. I'm the Director of Governmental Relations with the North Carolina School Boards Association. The real time part of this is now going to start happening. So we want to make sure that you all are comfortable with these goals, because the next 3 meetings, along with essentially homework assignments for staff, will be setting the objectives that will be under each of those goals, and then the action steps, which will essentially be the work plan for your staff. It typically will be in 3 chunks of time. You will have a short-term set of actions, so probably by the beginning of next school year, then one that's a little bit longer, probably throughout the subsequent school year, and then one set of action steps that is more long range. And so you'll kind of have those 3 buckets of action steps under each of those objectives, which will then roll up into each of those goals. And so that's why we wanted to bring to you tonight the goals, so that you could take a look at them, make sure you're comfortable with them, because we do not want to ask everyone to spend all this time coming up with all this, and then you say, no, we didn't really like those. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Go back to the...
I have a question regarding Goal 1, and so I think I probably asked this question to Dr. Cato earlier about the wordage of equal versus equitable access to effective instruction, et cetera. Is there an intentionality behind using the word equal over equitable?
I do not believe so, and you will see obviously in number 2 the word equitable is used, and I think you pick up the notion of equitable throughout all of the goals. If you go back and look at some of the responses from the SWOT analysis itself, there was, in addition to lots of comments about or areas around equity, there was also just having equal things, and even having that same playing field to begin with. And so I think if you go back and look at some of those comments, you will see both of those themes running throughout what the public and the staff gave back through those comments.
They were more or less focused on equal access to classrooms need to be standardized. We need to have facilities that are standardized. People need to have textbooks that are not disparate. But what we can do, Chair Woodbury, is take that back to the committee and have them look at that a little bit more. So that's a good question that we don't have a great answer for, but we can have them go back and look at that again.
I have a suggestion. I think that we should have both words in there, that students should have equal and equitable access, because we're talking about what you said, Dr. Hairston. When you go from school to school and from classroom to classroom, you do see that there are some disparities, and that does impact outcomes. That does impact achievement. So we need to have both words included in that. So.
Okay. So we absolutely, we'll take that back.
Thank you.
I don't think that will be an issue. So.
Were there any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next discussion item is the Equity Committee report by Board Member Deanna Kaplan.
Thank you. The Climate, Culture, and Equity Committee met on December 2nd at 5 o'clock. Effie McMillan facilitated the discussion and feedback concerning the proposed policy with extended time allowed for revisions. Feedback from committee members was productive, and individual comments are included in the minutes, which will be posted on the website. Once again, the ESSA pillars are school policy and organization/administration, classroom environment, academic placement, tracking and assessment, professional learning, standards and curriculum development, and staff would be looked at separately. Dr. Hairston suggested a sample AR be included with revised policy. Additionally, she stated that more comprehensive plans with action steps would be developed by district departments and shared with the board rather than be included in the policy. Dr. Hairston suggested that the board appoint an equity advisory and establish bylaws for the group. As mentioned earlier, detailed minutes are available online. Meeting was adjourned at 6:05.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? The next discussion item is the Finance Committee report, also by Board Member Deanna Kaplan.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met today at 4 o'clock. Frida Lashmet reviewed the monthly revenue expenses. A more specific category subscription was added to the monthly report. The only change is restricted grants are pulled out to see only local and state money. Ms. Lashmet also gave us an update on the salary increase policy 4141. She proposed that it go to the full board for final approval to pay the teachers the pay increase. The teachers and assistant principals will get an increase of less than a 2% average of their base salary. Principals will get an average of 6.3% increase of their base salary. Teacher supplements also went up a step between $7 and $15 a month. Kevin Sherrill walked us through the firewall services renewal lease agreement and the data backup and archiving solution lease agreement. The 36-month firewall equipment lease will cost $677,339.02, which will be spread out over 3 payments. The data backup and archiving equipment lease will be for 48 months with annual budgeted payments totaling $234,767.83. These items have already been marked in the budget. Dr. Hairston updated us on the quarter-cent sales tax initiative. There is a committee to move forward to work and campaign for it. Purpose is to address the teacher pay with a goal to get well above the state average. Estimated $13 million annual, which would yield between $2,000 and $3,000 increase per teacher each year. If it passes, Forsyth County property tax will decrease by 1%. There are 42 counties that already have passed a similar quarter-cent sales tax, and we will look at the classified in the budget for an increase at the same time. Action items included approval of policy 4141, approval of firewall services lease agreement, and approval of data backup and archiving lease agreement. Meeting was adjourned.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? The next discussion item is the Buildings and Grounds Committee report by Board Member Leah Crowley.
Thank you, Chair Woodbury. Buildings and Grounds met today. We started with a few discussion items. One was the Brunson Elementary School property update. We had a Brunson community meeting on November 19th, and feedback has been gathered, and Colin Moore has been working on concerns or other comments that people had about the site concerning the design, the neighborhood, environmental issues, how the building or how the school will be programmed and teaching opportunities, the travel distance, and the proximity to Samaritan Ministries. We also discussed a letter to the Forsyth County Commissioners on the Ashley land, and this concerns the 2016 bond savings that we have realized thus far in the bond process. There's been a little over $1 million in total savings from 3 different projects, and the proposal to go to the county commissioners is to use that savings toward the purchase of land for Ashley Elementary School. And that was all we discussed.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? The next order of business is action items. The first action item is to consider approval of the equity policy and administrative regulation. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor? All opposed? The next action item is to consider approval of policy 9,000 first reading. Is there a motion? Any discussion or question?
Yes, I have one correction that I had already sent to Dion. In one of the sections, it says that the meetings will start at 4 p.m., and she's going to change that to 5 p.m.
Is there a motion to approve with the adjustment as spoken by Board Member Crowley?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second? Any discussion or further questions? All in favor? All opposed? The next action item is to consider approval of the resolution on fines and forfeitures. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion and questions? All in favor? All opposed? The next action item is to consider approval of the letter to Forsyth County Commissioners on Ashley Land. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion or questions? All in favor? All opposed? The next item is to consider approval of the new CFO. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Any discussion or questions? Superintendent Hairston, is there anything that you would like to say with the?
Just would like to ask Andrea Gillis to stand. She comes to us from Charlotte-Mecklenburg, serving currently as the Executive Director for Budget Development and Operations, has over 20 years of service in accounting, in school accounting, and graduate of Hampton University, and has several certifications in project management. So she joins us here this evening.
Thank you. All in favor? All opposed? The next action item is to consider approval of the new deputy superintendent. Is there a motion?
Second.
Any discussion or question?
Yes, Chair Woodbury, we have Tricia Turner McManus here with us, if she'll stand. Mrs. McManus comes to us from Tampa. She is currently, she has a master's from University of Florida, as well as a bachelor's. She's currently serving as Assistant Superintendent for Leadership and Professional Development and School Transformation. I'm recommending Ms. Tricia McManus, and thank you for your consideration.
All in favor? All opposed? The next item is to consider approval of the new principal for Griffith Elementary School. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Any discussion or question?
Yes, Chair Woodbury, we have Saritha Mitchell with us. Saritha Mitchell, and I think her husband is joining us this evening. How are you? She currently serves as a principal in Randolph County and actually lives in the area, so I'm excited to recommend Saritha Mitchell.
All in favor? All opposed? The next item is to consider approval of the beginning teacher program. Is there a motion? Any discussion or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to consider approval of the consultant contract. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
I didn't see a contract to actually review.
Yeah, I was
on this
getting ready
one.
to.
Madam Chair, this is one that Jolette sent earlier today. This is a consultant contract for Deborah Leach. This is a requirement pursuant to court order in the employment matter.
Okay.
Got it.
Move to approve.
It's already moved,
I
so you
moved
need a
it.
second.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor? All opposed? The next item is the approval of the lease for the data backup solution. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor? All opposed? The next item is to consider approval of the lease for the firewall internet security services. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussions or questions? All in favor? All opposed? The next item is to consider approval of the Chromebook surplus sale agreement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor? All opposed? The last item is to consider approval of the contract for ORED. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion or questions? Superintendent Hairston, could you just review with us the purpose of the contract with ORED quickly?
As we look at the Louisville Middle School, we will need to redraw our attendance lines, and ORED will work closely with our school choice group to ensure that it's fair and consistent as we go throughout this process. So they will guide our process of rezoning.
Is this the same company that will look at our entire district?
No, that's, the school choice committee has met with ORED. They're working together. ORED works more or less with Mr. Haman on placement of students, attendance zones, and the organization that we're working with the school choice is focused on school choice. But they need to work together to ensure we don't create more disparities and disconnects. So this group is actually, Darryl Walker, where are you? I think this group is out of, is it North Carolina State?
NC State, I think.
NC State.
Can you share a little bit?
Good evening. This is ORED, just so the general public knows. ORED stands for Operation Research and Education Laboratory out of NC State. And so Dr. Harrison is correct. They will work on our redistricting plan as well as come out of capacity study. You may, Ms. Jones may recall, Ms. Monson may recall that we contracted with them back in 2014 prior to the bond to look at some capacity studies. So they will do that again as well to kind of bring everything up to date. So it's kind of encompasses a lot of different information, but their main focus will be on the redistricting plan.
Is this a stopgap in case our big plan does not finish in time?
They'll work closely together. The timelines are in sync. And when we convene our committee in January, start that process, they both will be there to talk about the timeline and the work together.
Thank you.
Yeah, their timeline runs kind of parallel.
Thank you.
Any more questions or discussion? All in favor? All opposed? The next order of business is the consent agenda items. Is there a motion for the approval of the general personnel report and the approval of the meeting minutes for November 12th, 2019?
I move to approve with one change on the meeting minutes. I was present at the meeting, so I'd like my name on there. So otherwise, move to approve.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve with the adjustments as stated by Board Member Motzinger?
I'll move.
Any further questions or discussions? All in favor? All opposed? Our next order of business is our meeting that's open to the public. Before we begin the section of our meeting, we say good evening to our audience on Channel 2. And we thank you for watching. At this time, we will, of course, open.
Thank you for joining us on your school channel, Cable 2.